Today we're going to look at various questioning styles that you can use to your benefit. No doubt you're using some, if not all anyway. You just might not be aware of it. By bringing awareness to it, you can make better decisions on when to use what style to get you the answer or result you want. I ask questions, you say. Sometimes the other person isn't very responsive. They don't say much in return, just yes or no. Have you ever thought about the reason you might be getting that simple yes/no response? Well, I've just asked you a closed question. Closed questions require a simple yes or no answer. Sometimes that's what you want. Great when you want clarification or confirmation on something. Used commonly in certain professions like medical. Does this hurt? Can you hear me? Or the police and legal professions. Is this your vehicle? Do you remember going to this place on the night of X? Essentially, you can spot a closed question by the prefix can you, do you, have you, is there, does there. For example, does the London train leave from this platform? The answer is yes or no. Is your car red? Again, yes or no. And also applied in different tenses such as did you, could you, will you, and so on. What it means with closed questions is the conversation is on your terms. You lead the direction. However, it also means you do all the hard work, with the other person giving monosyllabic answers. Of course, people often help you out and reward you by giving you more, but if you're dealing with someone tricky, reticent, or elusive, then they'll invariably go for the easy route of giving a simple yes or no to your question, leaving you to have to think of another one straight away. The other drawback of closed questions is if you use too many at a time, it can feel a bit like an interrogation, going back to the police analogy. To get more out of someone, you need to open them up. Hence, open questions. There are generally 6 open questions which can be nicely summed up in a poem by Rudyard Kipling of Jungle Book fame. I keep 6 honest serving men, they taught me all I knew. Their names are what and why and when and how and where and who. The key line there is the second line because questions beginning with these words can elicit lots of helpful information. For example, what's your favourite meal? Why are you late? When did you start in this job? How should we tackle this? Where do I find the keys? Who keeps the register? All questions you can't reply yes or no to. And of course, someone very obstructive can keep replying don't know to an open question, or in more serious legal situations, no comment. But this is rare, and the great thing is you can just continue asking open questions to dig further. Surely they'll cave in eventually. These open questions can also be represented as a handy graphic with 5 birds or bums, depending on the way you look at things, sitting on rugby posts. The only caveat is to be careful around the use of why, because it can feel quite front-footed and judgmental or critical and can trigger people and get them defensive. For example, why did you do that? It has a different feel if you say, what was your approach to that? But in essence, you're asking the same thing. There's a very handy acronym that helps get someone to open up that can be classed as command questions. It's called TED. Tell me, explain to me, describe. Great starter phrases that should get lots of dialogue from the other person. And one benefit of open and command questions is that the other person is doing most of the work. You could also link reflective questions here as you repeat something the other person has just said or implied. For example, so you're saying you're feeling stressed. You might have heard of leading questions, which should be used with caution because people might just feel like that, being led. It essentially means, this is what I think, and I want you to agree with me. For example, don't you think you should have done your homework before sitting down to play the game? Or do you think that was the right approach? You're treading on eggshells here because the other person might get defensive and then the conversation is just going to go south. Rhetorical questions are where you're not expecting an answer, often used to open a conversation up or talk or gain more interest. For example, you might say, now, why do you think it's a good idea to bring a new product to market at this time of year? It gets people thinking, but without the need to say anything in response. Tag questions are used at the end of a sentence to get agreement and include examples like, isn't it, doesn't it, shouldn't we, won't it, don't you? It's a tool used to keep someone on board with what you're saying or bring them along with you on your idea. You might wait for the yes, no response. because you might well have spotted that these are also closed questions, or they can even fall into the rhetorical category as you're just looking to keep their attention and involvement. The key to tag questions is not to overuse them, and if someone becomes aware that you're using this deliberately, it's a real turn-off. I can think of a famous speaker, mentioning no names, who repeatedly says, "Isn't it so?" at the end of sentences, and it certainly detracts me from the message, and I start counting how many times they're saying it. One trap people often fall into is that of multiple questions. We have all these questions we want to pose, or we rephrase the same question several times, and it just works against you. People won't remember them all, or they'll remember and answer the last one, or more likely the easiest one. One question at a time. So, in summary, here's a list of questioning styles. 1. Closed. 2. Open. 3. Command. 4. Reflective. 5. Leading. 6. Rhetorical. 7. Tag. You can see how you can combine them in any conversation, what you would call a questioning funnel. Try them out at home, on friends, at work, and see the types of responses you get. And don't forget to take a look at my related video on probing to discover more, taking open questions even further.